The surprising traits avoidant partners find attractive. We all have that one connection, the one that pulls away just as things start to feel real. One minute they're all in, texting back, making plans. The next, radio silence. Welcome to the world of avoidant partners. Now here's the twist. While avoidant people fear emotional closeness, that doesn't mean they don't crave connection. They do. They just fear being engulfed, losing their independence, or getting hurt. And ironically, they're drawn to people who exhibit specific traits that make them feel safe, yet emotionally sparked. Let's break down what those traits are, and you might be surprised. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I always attract avoidant people? Or why did they come back right when I moved on? This is for you. First, avoidant people are drawn to self-possession. If you know who you are, if you aren't constantly chasing validation, you become magnetic. Why? Because you represent safety. You're not a threat to their independence. You're already independent. Second, they're attracted to emotional restraint, not coldness, but calm confidence. You don't rush to overshare or force closeness. You let connection unfold naturally. That's gold for someone whose inner alarm bells go off the moment things move too fast. Third, a solid sense of boundaries is incredibly attractive to them. When you calmly say no or step back when things feel inconsistent, you show that you respect yourself. That's powerful. You show them that connection doesn't mean self-sacrifice. Fourth, you have your own life. You're not waiting around. You have friends, passions, goals. And here's the funny thing. The more full your life is, the more an avoidant person feels the freedom to enter it. Because your happiness isn't dependent on their attention. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, you're consistent but not chasing. That's the sweet spot. You're warm, you're present, but you're not begging. And that contrast makes them feel intrigued, not trapped. So if you've ever felt rejected by an avoidant partner, don't take it personally. Often, their distance has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own fear. But when you show up with strength, self-respect, and a full heart, you don't just attract them, you give them a model for real connection. And whether or not they step up to meet you there, that's on them. You just stay in your power. Self-possession is one of the most magnetic traits someone can have, especially when it comes to attracting avoidant partners. People with an avoidant attachment style often feel overwhelmed by emotional demands or fear losing themselves in a relationship. They tend to be hyper aware of anything that feels like emotional dependency. So when someone walks into their life who clearly knows who they are, doesn't need constant reassurance, and carries themselves with quiet confidence, it's deeply attractive, almost disarming. This kind of confidence isn't about arrogance or dominance. It's about being rooted in your own value system. You're not easily shaken. You're not waiting for someone else to complete you, and that sends a signal that you're safe to be around. For an avoidant person, this feels rare and refreshing. It tells them, I'm not here to control you. I'm not here to lose myself in you. I'm just here because I enjoy being with you. That kind of energy puts them at ease, even if they don't consciously understand why they're drawn to it. When you're self-possessed, you're also able to handle space without panicking. That's huge. An avoidant partner often needs room to breathe, and if you can give that space without making it mean something negative about you, if you don't spiral or chase, you're demonstrating emotional maturity. You're showing that your sense of worth isn't wrapped up in how close or distant someone is at any given moment. You have your own foundation and it's solid. And here's the paradox. The more secure and self-contained you are, the safer they feel getting closer. Avoidant people often assume that intimacy comes with pressure or expectation. But when they meet someone who shows interest without attachment, Warmth without neediness, that old story starts to break down. You become the exception. You don't trigger their flight response because you're not trying to pull them into something they're not ready for. You also become a mirror. Your self-possession reflects their lack of it. And while that can be uncomfortable for them, it can also be deeply inspiring. It can challenge them in the best way to grow. They may never say it out loud, but they'll notice how steady you are in your energy, how little you seek approval, how much you live for your own joy. And in a world where most people try to win others over with performance, that kind of quiet certainty stands out. It doesn't beg for love, it invites it. Emotional restraint is often misunderstood. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about having a grounded presence, a kind of calm, emotional clarity that doesn't rush or demand. For avoidant partners, this trait can be incredibly attractive because it helps them feel emotionally safe. They're not being pulled into an intense emotional exchange that feels overwhelming or suffocating. Instead, they're met with a steady, measured energy that invites connection without pressure. Avoidant individuals are often hypersensitive to emotional intensity. They may interpret vulnerability or open expressions of affection as a sign that expectations are about to follow. Expectations they fear they can't meet. So when someone shows emotional restraint, it signals something different. It says, I'm here, I feel things. But I'm not here to pour it all on you or make you responsible for how I feel. That subtle distinction makes a huge difference. Emotional restraint also suggests confidence. It shows that you're in touch with your feelings, but you don't need to rush to share every single one of them. You trust the pace of the connection. You don't need to dominate the emotional space in the relationship. That restraint, that ability to hold space for silence, to allow things to unfold naturally, creates a sense of emotional spaciousness that avoidant people crave but rarely find. It reassures them that intimacy doesn't always mean intensity. This doesn't mean being unavailable or playing games. It's about communicating from a place of balance. Maybe you feel something strongly, but you choose to sit with it. Understand it and share it when it's truly needed, not just when anxiety wants relief. That kind of emotional maturity is rare. It's attractive not just to avoidance, but to anyone looking for real connection. Avoidant partners often expect that as soon as emotions enter the picture, so does chaos. They may have learned through past experiences or childhood patterns that emotions come with pressure or volatility. So when they meet someone who can feel deeply yet express it with calm clarity, it disrupts that pattern. You don't feed their fear, you help soothe it. You're emotionally open, but not emotionally chaotic. And this is where restraint becomes magnetic. It shows that you can handle your emotions without needing someone else to manage them for you. That kind of energy is grounding. It makes the other person feel like they're not going to be consumed or demanded of or emotionally ambushed. Instead, they're being invited into something far more powerful. A connection built on emotional steadiness, not urgency. Having strong boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to attract an avoidant partner, even if they don't consciously realize it. While avoidant individuals may resist closeness or seem to pull away when things become too intimate, they're often quietly drawn to people who demonstrate self-respect. Boundaries signal that you know where you end and someone else begins. You're not going to merge with them, lose yourself in them, or demand more than they're willing to give. So that clarity feels safe even if they never admit it. When you express a boundary calmly and confidently, whether that's saying no to inconsistent behavior, refusing to accept emotional breadcrumbs, or stepping back when you're being pushed away, it shifts the dynamic entirely. Instead of chasing or tolerating mixed signals, you create a structure around how you want to be treated. This shows that your sense of self isn't dependent on someone else's level of availability. And that kind of strength is quietly irresistible. Avoidant partners often expect people to bend, accommodate, and accept less in order to stay close to them. But when you don't do that, when you say, "This doesn't work for me," without drama or anger, it throws them off in the best way. It challenges the pattern they've grown used to. And what's more, it earns their respect. Deep down, even the most avoidant individuals admire people who won't abandon themselves for connection. Boundaries also serve another purpose. They protect your energy. You're not constantly drained trying to guess where you stand or chasing a connection that's not meeting your needs. Instead, you're stating clearly what's okay and what's not. And then letting your actions follow your words. This consistency between what you say and what you do builds trust. And ironically, it's this very trust that can draw avoidant people closer. When they see that you don't collapse under pressure or lose your center, it gives them permission to feel safe around you. You become someone they don't have to fear losing themselves with. You don't force closeness, and you don't allow poor behavior to continue unchecked. You create a space where mutual respect, rather than emotional dependency, becomes the foundation. And in a world where most people are trying to be chosen, your boundaries say, "I choose myself first." And that's exactly what makes you stand out. Avoidant partners are often most drawn to people who have a full, independent life. It may seem counterintuitive at first. Why would someone who fears closeness be attracted to someone who doesn't seem to need them? But that's exactly the point. The fear of being needed too much, of being emotionally smothered or expected to fulfill another person's happiness, is a core fear of the avoidant. When they encounter someone who clearly has their own interests, social life, goals, and daily rhythm, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Having your own life doesn't just mean being busy. It means being fulfilled without relying on a romantic connection to give you purpose. You wake up in the morning with things to do, places to be, passions to pursue. You don't sit around waiting for a text or adjusting your schedule on a whim for someone who's being inconsistent. That self-direction is deeply attractive to avoidant individuals because it allows them to connect without the pressure of being someone's entire world. There's a kind of freedom in that dynamic. When you're not emotionally dependent, you send the message that you're choosing to be with someone, not needing to be with them. That's a big difference. Avoidant people are often hypersensitive to emotional dependency because it makes them feel trapped. But when they meet someone who could walk away at any moment, not out of spite, but simply because they know they'll be fine on their own, creates both admiration and a sense of intrigue. You become the person who doesn't need connection, but still values it. That's rare. Most people, whether they realize it or not, center their lives around romantic relationships. But when you don't, when your life is already rich and full, you remove the emotional weight that avoidant people often run from. And ironically, that's what allows them to let their guard down. You also become less reactive to their distancing behavior. If they pull away, your world doesn't crumble. You still have your plans, your hobbies, your people. You don't chase because you have other things that bring you joy. This response, or rather this lack of reaction, shifts the entire dynamic. It tells them, "You're welcome here, but I'll be okay either way." And that subtle but powerful stance is what makes someone truly compelling in the eyes of an avoidant partner. Being consistent without chasing is one of the most attractive qualities you can have, especially to someone with an avoidant attachment style. Avoidant partners often live in a mental tug of war. They want closeness but fear it. They crave connection but feel overwhelmed when it starts to deepen. Because of this internal conflict, they're especially sensitive to any sign that someone might become too dependent or emotionally intense. That's why showing up in a steady, calm, and grounded way without trying to push the relationship forward stands out so powerfully. Consistency creates a feeling of safety. When you show up in someone's life in a reliable and emotionally stable way, it challenges their expectation that relationships are unpredictable or demanding. But the real magic happens when that consistency is not laced with pressure. You're not calling every day out of anxiety. You're not texting back to back because you're afraid of losing their attention. You're simply present, offering connection without conditions. That balance of warmth and self-restraint sends a signal. You can come close if you want to, but I'm not going to chase you to get there. Avoidant individuals often associate relationships with loss of freedom. When they sense someone is clinging or trying to control the emotional pace, they instinctively pull back. But when someone is emotionally available without being emotionally intrusive, it changes the whole experience for them. You're still there, still kind, still open, but you're not trying to control the outcome. You're okay letting things unfold naturally. That's rare, and it immediately lowers their defenses. This is not about pretending to care less or using silence as a tactic. It's about having a centered inner world that doesn't require someone else's constant attention to feel secure. Your energy isn't scattered or needy. It's rooted. You give just enough to show you're interested, but not so much that it feels like you're demanding something in return. This emotional balance is attractive because it doesn't trigger the avoidance fear of being engulfed. In fact, it often draws them in. They start to feel more secure around you because they sense that you won't fall apart if they take space. You don't guilt them or react with panic. You're simply consistent, available, and self-respecting. That contrast between emotional steadiness and non-attachment creates intrigue. It lets them know that if they want something real, it's there, but only if they choose it. And that freedom, ironically, is what makes them want to come closer. So what does all of this tell us? Avoidant partners aren't repelled by connection. They're repelled by pressure, intensity, and the fear of losing themselves. But when they meet someone who is grounded, self-respecting, emotionally steady, and living a full, independent life, that fear begins to quiet down. You become the rare person who offers connection without control, intimacy without intensity, and presence without pursuit. The most surprising truth? The very things that make you secure, the boundaries you hold, the life you lead, the calm way you show up, are the same things that draw avoidant people in. You don't need to chase. You don't need to perform. You just need to stay rooted in your work. Because the right person, avoidant or not, won't feel threatened by your strength. They'll feel safe in it. And when you meet someone who's ready to match that, you'll never need to shrink yourself just to be loved. Thank you for listening. I hope this gave you some clarity, confidence, and a reminder of your own power in love and relationships. Take care of your heart, protect your peace, and most importantly, never forget the value of showing up as your whole self. Thank you and goodbye.